And now, Podtendo presents Side Quest Cinema.
Since the discovery of their existence, they have been regarded with fear, suspicion, often hatred. Across the planet, debate rages. Are mutants the next link in the evolutionary chain, or simply a new species of humanity fighting for their share of the world? Either way, it is an historical fact. Sharing the world has never been humanity's defining attribute.
Hey guys, welcome to Podtendo Side Quest Cinema. We are looking at all the X-Men movies we've done a month ago. We had X1, now we're doing X2, X-Men United. I'm your co-host, Mick. And I'm joined every episode by my lovely and talented co-host,
Tyson.
Sweet. We were bridged. We talked a couple times about economy. We're strapped for time. We got 44 minutes. That's how long this podcast is going to be. So we're going to move along because this is a good movie. We want to leave it as much time as possible. So here we go. So X2 was released May 2nd, 2003. The runtime was 134 minutes. The budget was $10 to about $125 million. Box office return was $407.7 million. It was directed by Bryan Singer, produced by Lauren Schuler Donner and Ralph Winter. Cast included Patrick Stewart, Hugh Jackman, Ian McKellen, Halle Berry, Famke Janssen, James Marsden, Rebecca Romaine Stamos, Brian Cox, Alan Cumming, Bruce Davidson, and Anna Paquin. All right, so ready to rock and roll on to X2?
I am. A lot of the same cast, so we can just get right into it.
Yeah, it is kind of nice that they did keep the core together, and they did treat this a little bit as a franchise, right? The obvious success of the first movie kind of helped propel these kind of guys to want to come back to this. That's cool, right? Because this is a really easy franchise to change the cast around every 1 to 2 movies, right? So the fact that we had that continuity, I think, kind of helped the brand, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I think it shows that everybody had a good enough time, or they wanted to put the second one on their resume as well. So,
and yeah, as we kind of go forward, there's a reason. They came with some good ideas in this guy. Maybe didn't land the plane, but that's a next episode. That's a month from now. Today we can talk about good stuff. So development details of this fun title. After the success of the first movie, Fox greenlit a sequel, and Singer began researching future material, one being the legacy virus. They wanted to make this The Empire Strikes Back, where all the characters are all split apart and then dissected, and revelations occur that are significant. The romance comes to fruition, and a lot of things happen. David Hayter and Zach Penn were hired to write the script. Penn was partially hired when he convinced Singer not to adapt the Dark Phoenix saga, because why would you ever want to see a movie about that? Feeling that the franchise universe should be established much more before going cosmic. Instead, in what he feels was the major contribution to this project, Penn based the film's outline on Chris Claremont's graphic novel, X-Men, God Love, Men Kills, before leaving to work on another movie. Angel and Beast appear in earlier drafts, but were deleted because there was too many characters. Beast can be seen in a television interview, and Angel was supposed to be one of Stryker's creations, the Archangel. There were scenes filmed of Cyclops and Professor X being brainwashed, but they were cut for time. David Hayter was bummed because he felt James Marsden should have been on screen more. What? You mean 4 minutes wasn't enough? What's wrong with you, David Hayter?
Yep. No, that's a fair point.
Do you ever wonder that, like, maybe you're just a big David Hayter fan? Like, the more you learn about him, you're like, man, I love Metal Gear. He's really good in that. And, like, most of his points seem like they're really on, like, yeah, Wolverine should be from Canada. And, like, James Marsden should do more than be in 2 scenes.
Yep. Sounds like he would have been maybe a very good choice for, like, assistant director, not just like assistant to the director. You know what I'm saying?
So rewrites gave more screen time to Halle Berry, who had just earned a Best Actress for Monsters Ball. Danger Room and Sentinels were also cut out of the film, so a little bit of change around, I guess, when they were making the Oscars. Filming began in June in 2002 in Vancouver and ended by November. Gene's sacrifice was highly secretive. Famke Janssen didn't actually learn about it until halfway through the filming process. The first cut of X2 was X-rated, but the Motion Pictures Association of America, or BAI, due to violent shots of Logan when Stryker's army storms the mansion. A few seconds were cut to secure the PG-13 rating. So that's why you don't actually see Wolverine stab and kill, and there's no cutting. Apparently they went really Weapon X in the early production. So I can live without it. It's nice. We get it in Logan, so I can wait.
Yep.
Yeah.
And honestly, we're not going to play it probably for this run through, but maybe eventually, the Wolverine X-Men Origins. That movie's a little controversial, let's say. But the video game basically is just like Wolverine on steroids. So it's just like cutting body parts off people and lots of blood and gore. So it's like there's a place for that. This needs to be a little bit more
make it more accessible, kid friendly, because it's a more of a youth oriented. You don't need to see gory stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Yep. Cool. So the Podtendo's terrible plot summary. I really struggled with this. I have a giant wall of text. This never happens to me. I've done like 2 sentences of Star Wars. All right. So following the events of the first movie, we witness a mutant attack on the president while Wolverine searches for his past, comes up empty, and returns to the X mansion just in time to babysit the kids because Professor X is going to see Magneto. The students are a bit more radicalized than normal. While Wolverine chats about awkward teen needs with Iceman in the kitchen, some soldiers attack the mansion. Meanwhile, Professor X and Cyclops are also kidnapped. Wolverine, Rogue, Iceman, Pyro escape to Iceman's parents' house, but almost get arrested before being rescued by Jean and Storm, who have returned from talking to the brainwashed assassin from the beginning of the movie. The plane is shot down, but saved by Magneto, who joins them while trying to save the professor from Arclay Lake. They must sneak in, fight Lady Deathstrike, stop Professor X from killing all the mutants, to then having to stop him from killing to living out Bender's shocking dream of killing all humans, and escaping before all getting killed by water. There was a lot of plot points.
Yeah. And you can't really, it's weird to just try to summarize it, because it's very character-driven kind of thing.
Yeah. The note I read in development details of Beast and Archangel getting cut because there's too many characters. I was like, there are too many characters, and some people literally just sit in a jet the whole movie and do nothing. And I'm like, but I think they're maybe main characters, right? So, yeah.
They also crashed the jet
and then wreck it
for some reason.
They needed conflict. I don't it's again. Too many characters, too many plot points. I think we got through it. All right. So storytelling, I'm just going to skip that. So film's major overarching themes. So we have the fear of the other. An eye for an eye makes the world blind. And using mutants against mutants? Poof. So there you go. There's X-Men 2. Do you need any clarification, or is there anything you want to say before we jump into the review of this movie?
No. Other be bad. That's apparently the only thing that this thing keeps trying to beat you over the head with.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Other be bad. Be accepting. All right. So review. So Tyson, we start out positive. What is your favorite part of this movie?
I think there's some pretty cool set pieces, but reading your notes, that is an amazing scene, and I think that one is the one that stands out the most.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So Tyson obviously didn't want to steal my thunder. The beginning of this movie, Nightcrawler's seen kind of the attack of the president with the orchestral, kind of mystery of who is he, his teleportation, the assassination of the president is just done so well. I've quoted it as a top 5 comic book movie. Going back, I was a little underwhelmed, but the introduction of then the X-Men. There's a scene where they're in the museum and they're just being kids, and then as they kind of start roughhousing some older kids, time freezes and Professor X rolls in. And I think just that whole opening, until the X-Men see the news report of the Nightcrawler attack on the president, is top notch. Is maybe a top 5 movie or comic book movie moment for me. So this has to be my favorite part. I went back and watched it. It holds up even on the second kind of watch through quick. I have an affinity for Nightcrawler. He was definitely one of my favorite characters when I was younger, right? So I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I think it's just nice and solid and holds up. So there we go.
Yep.
All right.
I guess my other kind of part is the attack on when the mansion's getting invaded.
Okay.
That whole scene is really cool because it's kind of like how the different Kitty just drops through the floor and then just runs through all the walls. And Siren wakes everybody up, and Colossus just like throws people through walls, and Wolverine's like, "Oh no, screw this! I'm just murdering people."
Yeah,
It's like
that is a really fun part. The first hour and a half of this movie, there's stuff happens and I like it and I'm on board, but it does feel like it's just a generic X-Men movie. It doesn't exceed expectations. Man, the last hour of this film though, phenomenal. Absolutely top notch. Maybe one of the better comic book movies ever made. Right. And it's discernibly broke into parts. Right. So like I would say the very beginning, the mansion attack, and then that last hour. Whoo boy. Bang for your buck. There is some like incredible moments in this film. And then there's some drag. There's some drag. Like you're like, oh, okay, all right. Did Rogue really have to fly out of the ship to be saved by Nightcrawler? I mean, she needed something to do. Right. Like,
yeah, I almost thought that it would have been better not for her to get just like always be the damsel in distress and kind of
better
useless.
not to. Oh no, we lost Rogue. Well, win some, you lose some.
Yeah, it's like Nightcrawler just saves the day again because she's just fallen to earth, and everybody's like, "Well, carry on."
I could get to her. No, it's fine. Honestly, don't worry about her. She's so perfect. Like she's only been around for like 4 hours, so, and she's been a kind of a pain in the ass the entire time she's here. So.
And Bobby was just like, "It's fine."
I wasn't getting any anyways. Like Shadowcat can give me a hand job like through the wall. Like maybe I'll just do that instead.
Way easier.
Yeah. And like Bobby, and he's like, no, kind of. That's your character. Is just saying awkward teenage stuff. So he's like, I just really want to, but I can't. But I just want to. And you're like, oh, okay, awesome. Do you care? If we have time at the end, I will say my top 5 comic book movies. We can maybe talk about that. Or there is going to be some overflow from this podcast into our next episode. So we're a little bit strapped for time today. Our next episode, we could talk for 2 hours. So X3 Last Stand is going to be a much bigger, grander episode. And we will be bringing over elements from X2 into it. So FYI, if we seem rushed and we're like missing stuff, we will breathe next time. So most notable scene or part of this movie. We have the White House attack, the freezing time at the museum, like I mentioned, Mystique's breaking into Stryker's office and posing as Lady Deathstrike, Magneto's jailbreak scene is always kind of up there, the X-Mansion invasion, Magneto saving the X-Jet, Wolverine versus Lady Deathstrike, Jean stopping the water, Professor X killing everyone, the Lady Deathstrike scene, Stryker getting his just dues, Magneto changing it, the plot twist of why don't you kill all humans, Jean and Cyclops' fight at the dam off the top of my head, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. The X-Men talking to the president in the end, so many notable scenes, and what we mean by this category is, it's been a while. You haven't seen X2. What sticks with you? What stays with you? What has stood the test of time? Tyson, do you have what stands the best test of time?
I think it's I like the X-Men invasion.
Okay.
The X-Mansion, and I think just handled really well. It's a nice showcase of all the characters' abilities, and but I think the one that kind of is most notable is the Jean's death, because it kind of sets up a whole domino effect of what is going to come, and us kids were all hyped about it, and we didn't know what was right around the corner. So
yeah, that does. For myself, when I think back of this movie, I get stuck again. I think there is one of the best scenes ever in a superhero movie in this particular film, right? So obviously that's kind of there. But like, what kind of stands out in my mind is the stuff at Arclay Lake. Again, I just think that it's incredible. It's good storytelling. They do it really well. So kind of one of those moments. And yeah, probably Jean's death up there, right? You're like, holy smokes. And you see kind of at the end, Jean's talking about human evolution, and you just see the phoenix in the water, and you're like, what is happening? They're doing so much cool comic book stuff in this movie. It's amazing. Do you have any first memories? That's something I was going to start adding to this. Do you have any kind of nostalgia or first memories? Like we're really good for time, everyone. So we're not going to panic. Let's take a second to breathe. I was going to ask this kind of to start. What is your first introduction?
Well, I remember going on sports trips. I don't remember if we watched this in theaters or what. We must have at some point or something. But okay. I remember going on road trips, and someone in somebody's minivan, they had a portable TV hooked up to the actual AC charger, and
Yeah.
we would just watch this on repeat while on like 3-hour drives, all crammed in there, just like hunkered around watching this bloody movie again and again. So, and it was funny because I think that it was just like so much thought was going into like, oh, we need to bring this TV, but they only brought the one movie. So it's not like we watched the first one, then the second one again and again. We just watched this on repeat.
All right. So I skipped this in movie theaters. I don't know why. If we get to cultural or Wayback Machine, you'll be like, oh yeah, I don't know, maybe that's, I don't know. I've seen movies around it. I skipped this one for whatever reason. And actually, your Call of Duty friend, we were on a basketball trip, and we had like 4 hours between games. We found a little room. We found a TV. He had a portable DVD player. We plugged it into the television, found a power cord. He had X2. I was like, I've never seen this. We watched it. It was a phenomenal afternoon. I ate a whole box of donuts. It was, what more could you ask for as like a 16-year-old boy? Top notch. Loved it. Was like, that was way better than the first one. That was an actual comic book movie. This is incredible. So that was kind of my introduction with this one. I know I was really hyped after seeing not so much the first one. First one was like, it's a thing. Obviously wasn't enough to get me into this one, but this movie got me into the third movie, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, well, I think this movie got everybody into it, and X-Men kind of saw a bit of a resurgence.
I'm curious to see what kind of a box office bump Last Stand gets as a result of how well this movie is made.
Oh, I still think it, like, X-Men Last Stand was one of the highest grossing X-Men movies, if I'm not mistaken, because of this bump. And it's a thing that like you even see with James Bond movies. They say it's like the box office of like the current James Bond movie is always based on the previous one. So if the previous one was shit, the next one's going to suffer.
I see. So the fourth Daniel Craig is better because Skyfall was so good.
It did really good on box office, but then No Time to Die kind of suffered, plus coronavirus. To Spectre.
Okay.
Because it wasn't very good. But it's or even like, so it was like anyways, I don't want to get it down the road. We don't have time.
I was like, we have extra time, and then like 10 minutes later I was like, okay, so now we have no time, so that's the end of the episode. Thanks a lot, Tyson. So we've praised this movie. There are flaws though. There are some flaws. What is your least favorite part of this movie?
I just think that a lot of people don't have a whole lot going on. And it seems that some people, they're spread too thin. It should be a more focused tale. And I think that even with the loss of like Cyclops and Professor X for half this movie, it's like it kind of helps fix a little bit of the pacing issues, but it still like leaves characters sitting in a jet doing nothing. And I guess I can actually say this, like, why the heck do they fly that jet? Like, I could see if they were like the jet was parked super far away, but that was never like conveyed. It just seemed like the jet was moved, and
like, so if it was that far, they have a guy that can teleport. Just teleport one of the pilots, right? Whoever can fly the plane, that works, right? We know it works. Just teleport them over to it, get the jet, then come pick up the kids and go.
Yeah.
You crashing the plane is really, really terrible. Yeah. So like my least favorite part is like, what does Rogue, Iceman, and Pyro do? Nothing. They kind of escape the mansion with Wolverine, and then there's like kind of a little bit of discourse, and like Pyro is probably the most interesting character, right? He kind of has a heel turn. He believes that he is the superior race, right? He thinks that his powers of fire are quite dangerous. He's very radicalized. He works with Magneto. That's really cool, but he just kind of like goes through the motion and does his things, right? Why is Colossus in this movie?
Because you wanted Colossus. But you also needed somebody to look after, quote unquote, the kids.
Where do the kids go after they escape the X Mansion? So they escape through this tunnel,
hanging out in the woods.
That's it.
Hanging out in the woods with Colossus.
But there's a plot thread that's just completely dropped, right? So like, there's so much going on, and I appreciate it. But why not make this 2 movies then, right?
And I guess like the Iceman Rogue pair, like they're kind of just completely useless, and them just being like, okay, we're just going to sit in the ship the whole time because they want us to sit in the ship the whole time. It's kind of just like Pyro kind of has a point to be like, no, like we can help, we can do things, we should be doing this. Like when they leave Bobby's house, Iceman's house, he's like, Wolverine's knocked out and Rogue's being useless. Bobby's not going to do much. So it's up to Pyro to be like, okay, I'm just going to throw fire at vehicles. And then when big explosions happen, everybody runs away. I feel almost validated. So he kind of has at least a little bit of character development. Iceman and Rogue are just like, we're standing here because we're characters that you remember. Don't you remember us?
Yeah, and like they talk about like literally Iceman's conversation. He's like, it kind of sucks that like we can't have sex because we can't just be the horny teens in this movie. So, but like that's our roles, but we're just not going to do anything, right? It's almost kind of like an effort of futility at that point, and it's just, I don't know, it's such a good movie, and it's so interesting. You could have broke this up in almost 2 parts, right? Like, I mean, they could have extended it and given everyone more screen time or reduced things. This kind of makes you show why with a big team ensemble cast in a Justice League movie, you can't just throw everyone in and expect us to understand what's going on. You do need to build individual stories so that when they get together and have reduced screen time, right, Ant-Man can have a moment of running with the Infinity Gauntlet and being big, and that's all we need from Paul Rudd in an Avengers movie, right? Because he's had his own movie. We kind of know who he is. Versus they're trying to do the same thing with like Rogue and Iceman, but we haven't had that really established yet. Right, so the backbone of the Avengers team up movie is you can see it, but they didn't do the groundwork yet. So, yeah.
So, what are some criticisms you got for this movie?
All right, so in the first movie, we went through the we went macro instead of micro. And in this movie, we get kind of a micro story, but like there's too much going on. The film lacks focus, and the parts that do have kind of through lines are absolutely amazing. They're well paced, and some of the best comic book movie storytelling I've ever seen. But the characters who aren't Wolverine, Jean Grey, or Professor X don't do much, right? There's too many X-Men for this movie, and it's just not enough screen time to go around, and we have casualties of war, right? Like we have Alan Cummings being like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore because I got dressed up every day to be Nightcrawler and I had 7 lines and I don't do anything. And like James Marsden just being like, just kill me. Like, if you're not going to put me in the movie, just kill me. I don't want to be here anymore, right? So like we see a lot of negative fallout from how they kind of just shortchanged people in this film. And I don't know, they should have been a better team, right? Like we're looking at like the big 3 in Miami. You don't know anyone else outside of Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade and LeBron James in Miami, right? So it's kind of being like a role player, and I don't think a lot of these guys were at the point in their careers where they wanted to be role players. So that's kind of my criticism of this film was they were too ambitious, and it hurt them. Yourself, do you have any criticisms?
Yeah, I think that there's just the lack of focus just hits the nail on the head. There's just certain things that could have just been cut, like Rogue and Iceman aren't really doing much. Storm's kind of there, which this is kind of an early praise, but Halle Berry wasn't completely wooden in her performance. She showed like she was an actual human being, it was nice change, and I was like, wow, that's an improvement.
Yeah.
But it was just, and even like Wolverine kind of was just almost playing a cliched Wolverine version, and I guess that will kind of maybe we'll show in my rankings later if we do our rankings. Because I think that this is a good movie for him to be showcased, but he even kind of falls a little flat because it's just they're trying to do a lot with so many different moving pieces, and they're just not really telling a big grand story. Like Stryker's an interesting villain, but it's like, who really cares about Stryker?
Well, and like the problem they keep doing, and this goes to most movie, like the Marvel kind of took a step back and be like, what if Ant-Man just focused on a crime syndicate in San Francisco? Okay, cool, awesome. That's a small story. They were like, what if we turn all the leaders in the world into mutants? What if we killed every single person on the planet? That's a giant event, right? Like that is the end game event of an X-Men universe, right? And you're just like throwing it away. That should have been more just like a micro story of they're doing something bad to the professor. We have to go save him, right? They know about Wolverine's origins. Hey, let's play around with that, right? Like keep the story kind of small. You don't have to always have the big hole, hole in the sky that's sucking up the world. What if the Suicide Squad just like, I don't know, stopped a jail riot, right? Like make it small. Right? Like they don't have to save the world all the time, right? Like it doesn't have to be giant events. It can be little stuff. And I think had they shifted just a little bit more micro and just focused on little things, it could have been a little cleaner, right? And then you got stuff for the next movie, right? Like every person in the world dying probably should be a bigger deal. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like you could kind of ramp up the stakes because when they do the X invasion or the X-Men Mansion invasion, they don't like who do they get?
They get a bunch of kids. You know what? And I was just thinking, like, you know what Rogue and Iceman could have done? They could have been in prison with Cyclops, right? And now you have like, okay, we have to escape or something, and like give them just something to do to try and get out of prison that facilitates like their character development. And then they at least have stuff to do versus being Wolverine's friend just gets you sitting on a plane and like doing nothing. Right.
Yeah, being background dressing. Like, yeah, I understand. It's like, oh, we don't really want to just relegate people to damsels in distress, but it's like they can do things while they're captured. Like they could try to like help rally the kids, and we could. A good way of expanding people is kind of like, hey, set a way, like give the people that got captured, and you can kind of introduce people through little bits and bobs during like maybe a prison break or something that just so happens to. Because Jean can communicate with maybe a kid psychic. You need little things you could have done.
Yeah, very much so, right? And it's just, I don't know, it's ambition. Again, ambition sometimes kills you. If you're not ambitious, it shows and you give a crap performance. Sometimes too much ambition, it's just a little bit too much, right? So it's just that hampering expectations is kind of what I expect. And it's not bad. Like, again, very, very good. If anything, I would have taken 2 movies. Give me 5 hours to tell this story. Man, you've got a phenomenal 2 movies, right? So it's just, I don't know, kind of those like lacks of stuff. Overall, really good, really enjoyable. I would go back and watch the last hour of this movie 5 days of the week, right? Like it's an easy no-brainer. Let's go, let's watch it. I do love it. It's just leaves you wanting more. So then how about a final praise? Then we're done a review. Look at that, with some time to spare. Yay.
That's always nice. Why don't you go first?
So the first hour, 15 minutes of this movie, so not an hour and a half, kind of lame. It's very generic. There's some cool parts. There's some highlights. But for the most part, overall, I'm like, it just leaves you with more questions than answers. And then the last hour, whoo boy, it goes. It picks it up. It rocks. There's some rough landing via plane, as well as kind of like the actual film. But like, oh boy, lows are lows. But like the evenness is because the highs are so amazing. I think it brings up the average of this film to be like just one of the better movies, right? So it's well done, it's told, it's made, it's an excellent comic book movie. The pen, the haters, the singers, I think they cared about the source material and they wanted to provide kind of the best story that they could, and it shows. But their time management, unlike our time management, which I might add is phenomenal here on this podcast, just could have used a little work and tweak, and I imagine there were executives coming down being like, man, you have Halle Berry, give her something to do, right? So you had, I'm sure, a lot of politicalness, right? They didn't know that this was going to be a franchise and comic book movies were going to take off and this was going to be all anyone ever wants to talk about and think about, right? So, like, with that being said, they did a very, very good job, and take it with a grain of salt, right? So, yourself, final praise of this film?
I think it's a really good movie, probably one of the best X-Men movies that we've ever gotten. It's not a perfect movie, but I think that it handles the source material really well. For a follow-up to a movie that essentially was almost sabotaged, and the only reason it kind of got greenlit for a second one was because it was loved by the fans. I think that this, we can always want more and more out of things, but I think for what we got, it's a very enjoyable movie. I think, like, even going back and watching this after it's been way too long, there's little moments, like even the scene where Wolverine shows up back to the X-Mansion, and it's like first one to greet him's like, I think Jean, and then Storm shows up, and then Rogue shows up, and Scott shows up, and it's like everybody says these like little character moments, and you're like, it works so well. Like sometimes when they're writing these characters interacting, they just nail it because it's handled by some people who are fans of the series, and what they gave us isn't perfect, but it's darn good. And I think one of my favorite X-Men movies. So
one of yours. Of all the movies that we have slated for, I think this is the high point, but very similar to Empire. Empire I think is a better movie overall, But like this is really, they did make the Empire Strikes Back of X-Men movies. When you look at kind of the overall continuity of the films versus say like this all the Star Wars movies we've got, the two stand out, right? X2's Empire. I mean, I think Star Wars is a better franchise than X-Men, at least in movie terms, right? So it's probably comparable for the most part for what they did. Yeah, like it not good job. I said we were going to gush, and there we go. Look, 30-minute mark. We're going to do it. We're going to get our whole podcast in under the time limit. Yay.
Yay. Well, we're trying.
It's true. We do have some time to screw around. So, but like anything else that you want to add to this film? Anything stands out?
No, I think we wrapped it up kind of nicely.
Okay.
Sometimes being a little bit more succinct and not getting sidetracked is a good thing.
Very much.
So, I don't know. Maybe we, unless you got anything else to add, do we hop into Are You Buying It?
Yeah, I think that kind of ends my... I will be referencing this film more. I might even go back and watch it before we do Last Stand or when we're doing Last Stand or something like that. So it will come back up in discussion. So I'm not done talking about this film. And I think this film actually will probably proceed into the next movies. Like it'll be a trickle-down effect. So it's nice that we could kind of get our thoughts here concise.
Yeah.
We talked about all our moments. Give us some breathing room on the back end. And I think it will carry on, right? X-Men.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to reference the original X-Men movie again. This is kind of the litmus test and how everything is going to be like the standard for the rest of the franchise. So it will come back up, but it's kind of, this is like the required reading before you can just blatantly talk about excellence.
Yeah. And I think like the whole comparison to Empire does ring true, because it's like when you're comparing Star Wars movies, you tend to use the benchmark of Empire, and I think that this will be a good barometer for what makes a good X-Men movie and what doesn't make a good X-Men movie. So there'll be a lot of comparisons too coming up in the future. I can just see. So
yeah. Sweet. Okay, so then Are You Buying It? Like Tyson alluded to, is our next section of a review that's kind of done, but like will be ongoing. So you could see the Arklay Lake from my house. Not quite, but it is filmed in the Kananaskis Valley near Calgary, Alberta. So within hours of where I live, and you live, you could see sets from X2, Prey, and The Last of Us.
Yep. Alberta is actually, and BC is becoming quite a little destination for filming. I know even if you need some prairies or some more rustic towns, they love Fort Mac. Or Fort McLeod, not Fort Mac. So
yeah, it kind of works. I mean, every town in Alberta is named stupid. They all start with C's. Come on, there's other letters. Okay, so then we do have time for the Wayback Machine. I might skip the song part because I know that takes... And we'll just kind of go through this broadly. In fact, I didn't even get Tyson an option here off the start. So, Wayback Machine, this is going to be kind of our pop cultural quick sneak peek. What was going on in the world back in May 2nd, 2003, not a time I reference. So currently on The Simpsons, we're on season 14, episode 13, A Star is Born Again. So Flanders has issues when he tries to date a famous actress, Sarah Sloane. Hilarity ensues. I don't really remember that episode. But on TV, you could also see The OC, One Tree Hill, Nip Tuck, Dead Like Me, Cold Case, Arrested Development, and The Simple Life. Okay, all right.
Yep.
Okay, yep. Let's see. Top cartoons, All Grown Up, Teen Titans, Duck Dodgers, and Jacob Tutu all started this year. Okay, all right.
Okay, I feel like we've been around this time.
Yeah. Let's see if something jumps out. So now movies, that's usually a good. Okay, I kind of remember this. I watched lots of TV. Here we go. So also this week, you could have watched the Lizzie McGuire movie. So that's where my wife was like, "Yep, know exactly where I was at." Hilary Duff, fucking nailed it. Still in theaters. You could see Identity, Holes, with Shia LaBeouf, Johnny English, and Anger Management. So the reason that I never saw this was because I didn't spoon you last night.
What?
That's a quote from Anger Management. He's like, now why did I throw those eggs? He's like, because I refused to spoon you last night? It was on a commercial. I don't know. It's always stuck with me.
Well, yes, this is Goose Fraba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I'm okay. Hole's not bad, and Johnny English also not bad. If this is the first Johnny English, I seem to remember this time.
Okay, nice. Okay, so then if you waited a week or two, you could see Daddy Daycare, Matrix Reloaded, Bruce Almighty, and Finding Nemo. So for some reason, Bruce Almighty made the docket, but X2, no way.
Well, Bruce Almighty's a bigger movie, It's got Jim Carrey.
Yeah, he was pretty funny. So, and I was like, Hugh Jackman, that guy, he just doesn't have the staying power to hang out in Hollywood for the next 20 years and be a top billing star. Top video games. We could have seen Castlevania, Aria of Sorrow. Ooh, so we're going to come back to this time at some point. Good, because I'm going to make Tyson play that game. Finding Nemo, WarioWare. Hulk, The Incredible Hulk for the Game Boy Advance, and Enter the Matrix.
Oh, yuck. Yes. Ugh. Yuck.
Yeah.
I remember that game was
god
awful.
Yeah, I kind of remember being in a video game store in a mall in Calgary with our cousin and our aunts and like getting to play a demo of this, being like, man, a Matrix video game is like the most meta anyone will ever get in media.
Oh, the Matrix will never be out of style.
Oh.
Lame leather, complete outfits with goofy hair and cool sunglasses.
Yeah.
And he's cool with some air quotes. Like, how about some like black, weird looking Oakleys?
Yeah, black leather was really in. Blade, X-Men, Matrix. All right, so nothing else. So
need a black trench coat. You need a black trench coat.
For some reason I didn't look this month specifically. I don't know why. So we're just going to look at the top Billboard songs from 2003. Number 3 was Get Busy by Sean Paul.
Oh, nice. Good one.
Okay. Number 2 was Ignition by R. Kelly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And top 3 songs. Was this? It must have been the whole year. I don't know. Anyways, then the number 1 song was In the Club by 50 Cent. So I'm like, okay, I kind of remember where I was at in my life at this point. Weird that I just skipped this movie, though.
Yeah. When it's like, what was I doing? It was May.
Yeah.
So
May,
it would have been like, yeah.
Club volleyball, maybe?
Yeah, but I figured it would have maybe already been done because that's more of a summer thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what maybe school was difficult, final or year-end exams.
Like in grade 10 being like, oh man, if I can't not study for this math test and then get the best score ever in school history, that would be a shame.
Yeah, it's like I'll never hear the end of this.
Yeah, oh boy. All right, so that's kind of foggy, not entirely sure what was going on in their lives. Maybe we just, I don't know, had like a girlfriend or something and didn't care about X-Men. It happens. All right, so that leaves us with some time, which is good because this might leave some discussions. What we're doing is we're keeping track. We're going to do a running tally through all these films instead of a cultural significance where I talk some big grand scheme where I just basically read Wikipedia pages, tell you top 10s lists. No. What we're going to do is we're going to play a game over this year. We're going to rank 5 X-Men or villains on a 5-point scale and just see how they do, throughout the cinematic run. So we're going to call it 5 points or another name that works. I'm not really sure. We were tasked at ranking the characters based on how well they acted. Their powers were used, unique ways their powers were used or shown, or just hysteric moments that make them stand out. Like, why is Rogue my number 1? Because all she did was she crashed a plane. She was like so upset. And I'm like, why did you try and fly the plane if you didn't know how to fly the plane? Like, that seems like a really simple way to not be in this situation, Rogue.
And it's literally like the only comparison I can think of is it's like, imagine you are like a parent and you tell your kid, I'm running inside to drop this letter in the mailbox. Don't touch anything.
Don't
you come back.
Yeah.
And your car has been put into drive and it's now hit a lamppost and you're like, what did you do? And the kid's like, I didn't do anything. It just started rolling forwards.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
You idiot little kid, you put this in drive.
That's it. So kind of a bit of a loose cannon. Oh, Rogue, anyways, so that's what we're doing. So 5 points. I got like 5 minutes here. Let's see if we can get through this. So Tyson, who is your number? Bottom up. So you got 1 point for 5, 5 points for 1. We're going to keep tabs. I'll do an average maybe after like the third film, now that we have like some data points, see how they hold up. So number 5, who is your number 5 on this list?
I got Storm.
Okay.
Halle Berry turned in a human performance where she wasn't completely wooden. I appreciated that. It made me smile. So she's my number 5.
Nice, solid. I put my Wolverine. So him taking out the guards at the mansion, his fight with Lady Deathstrike has to be on this list. Unfortunately, he was just overshadowed by 4 other people, right? That's what it came down to. I think he did a really good job. In theory, he's got some pretty dark moments in that mansion, right? So that's why I was there. How about number 4 for yourself?
This is where I have Wolverine.
Okay.
I think he was obviously a big hit in the first one. This one, he's good. He doesn't do anything bad. Just he's not really a main driving force. He just kind of is a force that is Wolverine. So, and that's an okay spot for him to be in an X-Men movie.
And there's like that weird part
it's not a Wolverine movie.
Stryker has been chained to this wall, so he dies by Magneto, because Magneto can't kill a person, apparently. And he's like, you could save me, Wolverine. And he's just like, no, I'm going to stick with the kid. And I'm like, but why did you have that moment with Stryker earlier where Stryker's like, I could teach you about your past. Come on, Wolverine. And I'm just like, I just don't, like, why did that happen twice? It was a weird scene. I don't know.
Well, and he drove to the one place and was like, I looked around and didn't find anything. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't look, that was above the surface. You got to look below. And it's like, Wolverine has a good nose. How did he not smell anything?
Yeah.
Stupid. Just dumb.
I don't know.
But
anyways.
Okay,
so then number 4, I have Jean Grey. So she hints of something greater going on. Her stopping the water at the end, kind of her battle with Cyclops that ruins the dam. She has, who doesn't love a death cliffhanger and a Phoenix reference? It was great. Actually, the scene where she kind of cracks the dam and she stops, I was like, holy smokes. Like, she does allude to a lot more going on in this film, and I think Famke Janssen isn't praised enough for her performance in this film, so that's why she made number 4 on my list.
That's fair. My number 3 is I got Pyro. I think he does like at least he has some interesting points. He did something. Of those 3 useless characters, he did something. Yeah. And he kind of was a bit more impactful to the story because he doesn't even set up the heel turn where it's like, it's kind of nice for them to set up that, yes, there is going to be a younger generation that does side with Magneto and all this. So
nice. I also went with the villain at number 3. I did Magneto myself. Amazing performance. I love just when he breaks out of school with the iron disc. Like, what a cool way of sneaking a small amount of iron in a bloodstream, right? Or just an extra amount of iron into this bloodstream. He kind of has like a face turn, which everyone loves. He has a heel turn right at the end. Kind of, he's like, no, I am the bad guy. And you're like, oh, Magneto, you little scamp.
Yep. Very good. My number 2, this is where I have Jean. Okay. This is like her moment to shine. She like, is the reason why they get out of there and save the day, even though they're, supposedly very powerful psychics on this whole thing. I'm not sure why she has to be the one that like Professor X, if you can reach so many people, I guess maybe you're tired or something. Anyways, it doesn't.
Okay.
Anyways.
You've compelled me. I'm swapping 3 and 4. Jean is 3, Magneto 4. So there you go. So number 2, I have Nightcrawler. So before this rewatch, I would have told you that warehouse or the White House scene, just top 5. It's amazing. It still holds up. I feel bad for Alan Cummings having to put all that makeup on and not really do anything. But I think just that outstanding performance he has at the beginning of the film, it gets him to number 2 on my list. You're number 2.
That's where I had Jean.
Oh, okay.
So I'm on to my number 1. Yeah. My number 1. This is where I had Nightcrawler, actually.
Nice.
I know he didn't really have a whole lot to do, and him having to put on that makeup, but the scenes that he was in, he was always fantastic.
Yeah.
He portrayed the character, and kind of his moments of like even talking to Mystique. It's like, why do you look like? Why would you stay looking like this? It's like, I would do anything to not look like this. Yeah. Like it makes him, and it gives you that like he's a poor tortured soul, and you feel sorry for him. And he has that amazing action scene at the beginning, and it's like, just for that, you're number 1.
Awesome. I went with Professor X at number 1. So his ability to selectively freeze time for people and become a mind assassin later in the movie, just an excellent showcase of how powerful he is, right? And I think he is kind of underappreciated compared to other powerful mutants. So my number 1 spot went to Professor X. And there we go. I think that kind of, there you go. Under the time limit, done. We're going to pause and we will carry on our discussion about this movie. So every thought that you have, keep in your head. Let's regurgitate it and like talk about it during X3, because I think there'll be lots of good talking points. And we need a little bit more runway with this, but I think that's where we're going to stop for today. So quick, short. And I think we'll have a quick, short show in 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we'll see you next time, everybody.
Cool. All right. Okay. Bye.
Bye.